Welcome to Literacy Mindset, where education leaders from across the country share strategies for improving K-12 instruction today and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The stakes are high. Students are facing new academic demands, and educators are navigating an ever-changing educational landscape. Each episode, we explore the most effective literacy initiatives, innovative tools, and strategies that are reshaping education. Whether you're an educator looking to improve student outcomes or passionate about driving meaningful change in schools, the Literacy Mindset brings you the insights and strategies you need to stay ahead. This is where education leadership meets real-world impact.
All right, well, I'm really excited here to have another episode of the Literacy Mindset and have my guest, Dr. Cosmas Curry, Superintendent of Schools at the Stroudsburg Area School District. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's an exciting time. We've been talking about some fun things, certainly thin layers of ice on tennis courts being one of them, but we're going to talk mostly about literacy today, albeit the weather is interesting, no doubt. Just tell us a little bit about you, your role, and your journey, what you refer to yourself as maybe the interstate superintendent.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Yes. Yeah, great way to put it, Jeff. Great way to put it. Yes, my career, I started as a health phys ed teacher in Berwick High School. I was an assistant principal there for 1 year. Berwick is a community off of Interstate 80 that traverses right through Pennsylvania, West Coast to East Coast, New York City to San Francisco.
Right.
So I then left Berwick to go to Columbia Montour Area Vocational Technical School as a principal and the administrative director there. I spent 8 years at Columbia Montour, also off Interstate 80, about 6 miles from my house. After that 8-year stint, I went to Bloomsburg Area School District, 6 miles further down the line on Interstate 80, did 7 years there, and then came east on Interstate 80, which we're the last district before you enter New Jersey. We're 1 hour from the Lincoln Tunnel, New York City, and I'm in my 10th year here, my 4th contract, and just, blessed with a wonderful career, great schools, great staff and students everywhere I've been. Communities have been ultra supportive, and I truly can't say enough and give enough thanks and praise to the people that I've had the honor to serve and work with. And here I'm in my 34th year.
Oh, well, that's excellent. What a career. And it is funny to kind of be silly on the interstate superintendent, but it actually is giving you probably some guidance as to themes and developments around the areas, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Tell us a little bit about Stroudsburg and where you're at today, and the district makeup, and orient the audience a little bit to what it is that you guys have going there.
Sure. Yeah. Stroudsburg Area School District is in Monroe County. We're one of 4 school districts in Monroe County. And we're 4,600 plus students here, slightly down from before COVID when we were at 5,200. Okay. Birth rates are down significantly for us. Our biggest population shift has been in grades K to 4. We have a lot of transiency and people that move into our community in grades 5 and up. All right. And often that's from North New Jersey and New York City. And wonderful makeup of students. We are 46% white, 22% African American, 28% Hispanic, 5% Asian, and the balance in Native American, Eskimo, and Pacific Islander. Our budget's about $140 million. We have about 750 employees, just over 400 teachers. Our schools, we have 7 school buildings. We're structured K to 4. So we have 4 K to 4 buildings. We have 1 middle school, grades 5, 6, 7. We have 1 junior high, grades 8, 9, and we have 1 high school, grades 10 through 12.
Okay, excellent. So unique structure a little bit on the buildings there. Is that academically driven, or maybe more socially and behaviorally driven, the way you've done the buildings?
Yeah, I think it's more, I think at the lower level, certainly, I think when the decisions were made, it was thinking about having all the students in one building, and socially, in addition to having that more traditional elementary experience, which normally is K to 5. When I went to school, it was K to 6, right? But you've kind of seen a change where it went from K to 6, K to 5. K4 is somewhat common. On the flip side, the 10 through 12 in the high school isn't really common in Pennsylvania. Usually, our high schools are grades 9 to 12, and the structure of the junior high came based on the availability of the buildings, the enrollment at that time. Okay. And I think that the decisions were more socially driven, and having, middle school up to grade 7, 5, 6, 7 together, then grades 8, 9 together, then 10, 12. I just see a difference in when I look at the behaviors in the school, the academic success, the social pressures that sometimes come upon students based on a particular grade band. I love the fact that grades 8 and 9 are in their own building, because it truly, they're good, bad, or indifferent. Some listeners may disagree, but I just think psychologically they're uniquely different. They're kind of outgrowing their central nervous system, so they may be less physically and or emotionally or just nervous system wise on board, or not as good maybe as a 7th grader could be, because of that change. Right. And then by the time they get to high school, things kind of work themselves out, and they pick up. Now, it doesn't keep 9th graders from participating in sports with different programs, be it a 9th grade standalone program or a 9th grade being part of a JV program in a particular sport. So we have buses that pick up and drop students off. We call them activity buses. And in the the junior high school from our high school, driving wise, is probably 2 miles. Okay. All right. So it's not this horrific distance, but yeah, I really like, and the other thing I want to comment on is we have a dress code here, dress code policy. And that may be one of the greatest things that the school district did probably 20 years ago. It was well before my time, but it really makes a big difference, I think, in the attitudes and the behaviors, the mindset, the buy-in, the familial culture we're trying to create. Right. That, we're all on the same page here. And, when you look at life and you look at careers and you look at where you're going to be after school, 80% of jobs require a uniform of some sort. So, may as well get used to it. And kids sometimes joke with me, or they'll say, "Hey, Dr. Curry, can't we get rid of this? Can you do something about this?" And I always say, there's no way I'm getting rid of that. I love it.
It's my favorite thing.
I wish they'd make me wear a uniform. I'd be thrilled. I like to wear a maroon golf shirt with a pair of khakis. I'm good.
I know. No, and I do think that, when you talk about reducing cognitive load, there is an element that wake up every day and I put the same thing on. I don't even have to think about that. I can save a little bit of space for my academic adventures that day. So I like that. That's great. Well, let's talk about mindsets a little bit more as we talk about literacy mindset on this podcast. What do you do to sort of convey in your district a literacy mindset, and how do you structure things, whether you do it from a policy or framework standpoint, or whether you do it from a cultural standpoint? What are some things that you're doing to kind of help convey, just the level of importance of literacy in the learning journey?
It's a great question. I think we're doing a couple things. I think the first thing is just setting a vision of all students being able to read at or beyond grade level by the time they graduate, particularly, back to the 3rd grade. Like, that's the key point. And we have put so many resources and professional development activities together over the past several years, going back to 2019, the 18-19, 19-20 school year of training our administrative team on what the step-by-step process looks like, because that's what we adopted as our philosophy, if you will, of the teaching of reading, and identifying and getting buy-in from the administration first, and then teaching and bringing PD in for our staff. So our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade teachers are in their 3rd year of this process. Our 3rd and 4th are in their 2nd year, and our 5th and 6th are in their 1st year. All right. So it's the professional development has been heavy. It's been constant. But I think the thing I most am proud of the most, I should say, is the fact that the teachers have bought in. And when I look at the data meetings we have on a monthly basis, and in some cases there's more than one of those meetings, is bringing the principals together with their specific staff and its grade level staff, and then having some of our curriculum coordinator there and or assistant, whether it's the elementary or secondary person. We're all versed in this training. And I think it's really important that they know that, like, we're not looking to change gears in this. We're not looking to do this because this is the dog that's running. This is really important based on traditional data going back 20 years, which has been really consistent, decent, okay, ebbs and flows of arguably even good, okay, but if it's not 100%, you're not there. So being in that 80th percentile or 85th isn't enough, okay, and in some cases it may drop to 60, 65%, but we're never getting better, okay. And when you look at cohorts of children, and the most important thing, and we believe, is if you can read, you can succeed in anything, because you're reading in math, you're reading science, you're reading any other content area, even if it's a foreign language, whether it's numbers, symbols, or a different alphabet for that fact. You have to understand the context and the ability to have your mind trained as to what to do to be successful in those areas. So we've been very passionate about what I'm describing here in terms of that professional development and the consistency of it. And I think that, like everything else, when you see the early adopters that see success, and I could tell you, we have some kindergarten teachers that are just unbelievable, getting kids at 100% by mid-year, okay, on with their end of year data of phonics primarily at that point.
Sure, right.
But if they can master that component, okay, that the phonological side of it, then the orthographic side comes later, if you will, maybe not much later, but it typically comes after. And then from there, you build up on that ladder of meaning and context. So I just feel like I'm proud of that. I also think that I talked about the consistency side of it, but I think it's also not losing the mindset either of what's important in math and science, because you can't, like, we're just not focused on reading. All right, albeit if I had to put it in a percentage, it's probably in the last 5 years 65-35 reading to math.
Okay. And
now that the new Steele standards came out this year, it's more 55-60 reading, 25-30 math, balance, and science. All right. And that's going to probably hold true. It may even ebb a little more for science as we, again, transition into future years. Right. But I think that people see the value of it through data meetings. They see the value of it through the MTSS process that we have in place. People are working together staff are working together to make this a reality for students to be successful, and parents are informed, and we're looking at the data. We share it with our board, and it's just really important that we just maintain that the path, okay, on this ship. And that we kind of analogize it to an aircraft carrier. It doesn't turn on a dime, right. But once you get it turned and moving, we're moving, and that's where we want to be.
You can cover a lot of ground once you get that going. Okay, so the step-by-step process, maybe orient the audience to some of the details around it. Is it similar to just the science of reading movement that seems to be out there talking about foundational skills, or what other insights can you offer on that?
I think it's the science of reading. It's 100%. That's exactly what it is. It's brain-based learning, and the science behind that brain-based activity is to what fires in a student in terms of getting them to understand that. So when you think about a kindergarten student coming in, and what we have found with the academic standards in the state of Pennsylvania is from kindergarten to first grade, there's often a little dip. So as I'm telling you, there's 100%, nearly 100% of all, probably 17, if not 19 sections of kindergarten we have across the district. Excellent. So if 17 out of 19 or 15 out of 17 are at 100%, and let's just say 2 are at 88% or 92%, there's this dip in first grade as they transition from that verbal sound component to then the written component and the understanding of text. So it's making meaning out of what it is that they're learning in that connection. And what we have found is that there's a lot of work that goes into it. First grade scores are definitely improving. If you have a second, great. We were at 33% post-COVID at the end of the year. Now we're at 64% last year.
Wow.
Okay, so
That's
we're trying
excellent.
to overcome that COVID gap, that COVID slide, and that's just in first grade. Kindergarten, however, overall last year ended at started at it was at 43% post COVID, 80% before COVID. Now we're at 88%.
Oh,
Okay,
you've even gone
overall.
above that.
So, like I
That's
said, the
fantastic.
proof's in the pudding, and I think that what we're seeing is just tremendous teachers who become technicians at managing and balancing all the different components that go into the science of reading. So when we think about like that, I go back to that four-part processor and with the orthographic and phonological component of it, and
Right.
then making meaning and then context and in building up that ladder and doing whether it's the the screener, okay, that we utilize, the
Okay.
Acadian screener, whether it's using flight, okay, as an alternative process that we would follow to help with that science of learning and the science of reading based on students who are at or excuse me, below or well below grade level on a particular skill. So they're
Okay.
getting extra supports and help based on that need, which is why I think some of the data that we're looking at is much better than what it was even years prior, because once you see the difference and you can look at the data in particular grade levels and see the pockets of teachers who've had it and the success of it versus those who haven't got there yet or had as much time.
Right. No, I love that. Um, so when you think about sort of the systems of support or framework for intervention, what obviously we want grade tier one and have it come along the right way, but whether it's transient populations or whether it's something that's happened along the way, how do you guys think through intervention? What framework do you use, and what are some of the support systems in place?
Yes. I think, well, first of all, I could tell you that I had a conversation. I'm going to answer that question, but I want to tell a quick story first. I was
Please
talking
do.
with one of our teachers yesterday, one of our fourth grade teachers at our senior night for basketball, and her daughter plays. And we were talking, I complimented her on her data.
Okay.
And she was just saying, remember the two students, the ESL students, don't speak a lick of English that you saw in my room that day? I said, yeah. And she just said how far they have come.
Hmm.
All right. So are they at level? Absolutely not yet, but they've tripled in what they've been able to absorb and learn in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, you kind of extrapolate that out 6 more weeks and then 6 weeks after that. So by the end of the year, conceivably, they may be at that 50th percentile. Is it perfect? No. But if they've grown 50% in our language from what they know in a short period of time,
Incredible.
I have tremendous hope for what's going to be happening in the
Right.
future for that child. Okay. But the process that we use for such interventions would be the MTSS process, multi-tier system of support.
Okay.
3 levels, of course. Everybody gets tier 1. About 15 to 20% will get tier 2. About 5% will get tier 3. But what we were finding was when we implemented this early on 4 years ago, 80% weren't getting tier 1. Okay. And it was
Right.
really going back and having to do a lot of back work to close that gap. And I truly, when I complimented our staff earlier, I don't say that as lip service. I say it because I believe it. Like, they are good, hardworking people that give their hearts and souls to kids. Thus, the tears that happen in meetings sometimes, because they know they're working hard, and sometimes the data doesn't show how hard they're working. But we just get back after it. It's not punitive. We're not here to that's not our goal. Okay,
Sure.
our goal is to get kids to read.
Right.
So what can we do to support it? And here's what we're seeing that we think you can do better. Coaching sessions. Okay. People come in, we have a coach, and we also employ an individual, not employee. We partner with Step by Step, and our board has been very supportive of bringing in these professional from Step by Step for PD. So that's not just like this sit and get, you're in this auditorium with several hundred people and they're going to talk to you. These are very intimate, short, small meetings, okay,
Right.
where it might be an hour with a particular grade band in a school. And in some cases, that's 2 teachers. In some cases, it's 9, okay, at a particular grade level or anywhere in between, depending on the size of the elementary school. And then they go in and coach and they watch and see what you're doing and give you feedback, just like the football coach, just like the basketball or wrestling or pick the sport. Someone
Right.
is there criticizing in a good way, making you better, holding you accountable in a non-punitive way. And then the principal, we've done these professional walkthroughs, so it's not uncommon for our team to go. Sometimes there's 9 of us. You talk about intimidating, but you walk into a classroom, teachers wave like we're like old chairs anymore. Like it's become very commonplace to see this. And I think people are getting more comfortable with it. They're certainly getting more confident. All right. But it's working. And again, the data shows it. So we have MTSS. We have what I described with step by step. We have a reading coach, a reading specialist. We have math specialists. We have ESL. We have MTSS teachers. Okay, right now there's one in every school. So we have 7 staff that we employ as an MTSS teacher, and their job is to follow and work, with data, work with staff on what interventions and groupings can be done for this particular student based on what they need. So if they go into flight, you have a diagnostic component. You also have a benchmark component. So you can utilize lessons that they'll help support the teacher on, the teacher of record, if you will, to get them at that level, to get them beyond whatever it is that, that's keeping them below grade level, or below benchmark. Okay. If you will, below benchmark, not grade level. So, we have special ed teachers. So there's 6 different classifications of people, counting step by step as 7, that work collaboratively with each other to make all this work. Right. And as I'm talking, even to the listeners, it may seem like, what the heck are you doing? It seems so confusing. All right. And you have to see it in action to really, and I'm going to try and paint a picture of that. So we have MTSS meetings. When we have these data meetings, MTSS is at that table, that teacher. Right. So when they're there with those grade level teachers, and they're saying, well, this is what I'm seeing. All right, my students having trouble with, consonant, vowel, consonant or something. And so, well, here's some activities you can do. These are some things I'm going to come in and watch, and I'll give you some pointers. But it's not just somebody sitting there saying, do. They get involved. Okay. So, they're all you see is elbows. Okay. People working with kids and having
pull a small group and do a lesson, small group there.
Small group instruction. But in essence, these meetings have to do with how you're going to move forward from where you're at. And it is collaborative in its next steps. Is it perfect? I'm going to tell you nothing's perfect, but I'm going to tell you there's progress being made. And I just see it as the buy-in is there. And as I said earlier, I can't be happier with what I'm seeing and what's happening with our students as related to the science of reading, the teaching and the instruction going on. And we just got to keep it going. Like that aircraft carrier analogy is the best I can give. We're moving, and we just want to keep moving and keep seeing improvement. And the other thing that I think is important for me to mention is we celebrate along the way. Like when there's good things happening, celebrate. Let's get them a cake. Let's get a cake. Okay, here's coffee. Here's a faculty meeting. We're going to be talking. Let's celebrate this information, this data. Okay, and we talk to the students about it and why it's important. And again, our staff, I just can't. I'm probably doing a poor job explaining how great they are for kids. And I mean, you talk about loving them up and motivating them and inspiring them, and most importantly, holding them accountable. All right. Because as you know, in any school system, you're going to have, you come to teach, you come to learn, but there's going to be problems along the way. Sure. So you deal with the problems that come along the way, and you do it professionally, ethically, and with dignity and respect, and you build relationships. And that's ultimately what, our goal is in all of this, is to work collaboratively, build relationships with each other, with our students, with our families, and then see the success from there.
Got it. Okay. That's excellent. And I think you're doing a great job of painting the craft that your teachers are working with. And it's exciting to hear you talk about it. What one of the things that we find in these conversations and just across our work on the literacy side at Mindplay is the challenge for your upper elementary and your middle and junior high teachers when they do have students in their classrooms that are maybe missing foundational skills, phonemes or phonics, and they sit back and recognize, wait, I wasn't trained in how to teach some of these phonological skills. how do you guys support those teachers? Is there anything specific that you do around that, or what happens when that kind of occurs in your district?
No, that's a great question, and that's something that we have implemented here more recently, and it's Sunday, right? It's very similar to flight, but at the secondary level.
Okay.
And we use STAR as the diagnostic tool to help determine where students are and how they're performing. And the growth has been, it's a very good predictor of growth. And we've been able to utilize that information and that data, I should say. And then it's really our English language arts teachers and our social studies teachers that are the two content areas that we're seeing when I'm describing for 7th grade through 12th grade who may have gaps in their skills.
Okay.
So in lieu of that bottom-up approach, when I talked about that 4-part processor, this is more of a top-down approach. So you're looking at their comprehension and they're struggling. Okay, what is the next problem? Is it you filter down? Is it orthography? Is it phonology? And then, whatever components are missing, it gives us that flexibility, again, through special ed, through reading specialists, through math specialists, through special ed. I already said that, through ESL, if that's something that's required or needed. It's the coaching component and training them on the keys to literacy. And I think keys to literacy is an important part of making up that difference and getting, and it's new. Okay. So what I tell you, we are not as far along with that as we are the first things I talked about more at the K to 6 level, but we are making inroads. And I think there is a difference. And then with MTSS at the table at the respective schools, when students struggle, why are they struggling? So you go back to that intervention component, that plan, that process, and this is what we see. This is where they're struggling. Well, if they're reading at a 6th grade level and they're in 11th grade, well, we got work to do. We got to continue to bring that student up to that performance standard. And what I don't necessarily have data on that I can talk about today, though, would be students who are with us from kindergarten all the way through and never leave, or students who move in, and at what point do they move in? Where were they when they came in, and where are they when they leave? I know the difference that's made in like with those ESL students I referenced with that teacher, that 4th grade teacher earlier. I feel like there's always growth, but that student may only be here 3 months. Then we don't see them again. Maybe they'll come back in 6 months the following year, or whatever. It's just the nature of society for many different reasons. And, but our hearts go out for the kids to do what we can do to help them and make them, feel supported and most importantly, show growth, not just in achievement, but in the actual, in the area of reading itself. And like when I look at achievement data here, we are, like the way Pennsylvania's set up, there's red, yellow, green, and blue. Okay, green's good, blue's better. Blue's where you want to be. All right, and we have when I look at achievement, albeit I can show data that shows in some grade levels we're ahead of the state. Okay, our data outpaces what the state average is. In some specific areas, whether it's an individual school or classroom, it may be below. Okay, but what I'm seeing is in achievement, we're seeing arrows pointing north, okay, which is a good thing. Okay, some of them are red, all right, some of them are not. But what I really am pleased about that we're making progress on is the growth scores, where nearly all of them are green and or blue. And that's really what is important, because it's not just helping the student that struggles. It's the student that's a high achiever that still needs to grow as well. And if you're not growing the high achievers, well, we're really not doing a service then to that child or their peers in that same category. So it's about moving all kids, not just the bottom, if you will. So, the goal is that it's all kids. It's not 75% or 50%. All kids need to grow. All kids need to achieve. So they're two different measurements, but the same pathway to get there based on everything we're talking about thus far.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Um, I wonder. Oh, we talk a little bit about technology's influence on literacy or literacy initiatives in a district. We talked a little bit in our pre-production meeting about what you have got going. You do have Chromebooks throughout the district. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you make intentional decisions around curriculum and their ability to be used on technology, or do you usually say we pick the curricula as that our teachers can teach, and if there's a technology component, great, we'll figure out how to leverage it? Or how do you guys philosophically approach sort of the integration of curricula and technology?
Okay. Our approach has been, first off, when we made the decision, and we somewhat, dare I say, we got lucky, because I want to say like February 1st of 2020, we put this massive order in. We had already made the decision we're going 1-to-1 for the
No
2021
way.
school year. So we put our order in, and then the governor shut schools down on Friday, March 13th of that same year. But our order was in. So our computers
Got there.
arrived in July as promised. And there were schools that didn't get them till November,
Right,
December,
right, right.
because they just, the glut. I mean, it was just, you know,
Backlog
kind of
of
the
orders
problem
there.
explains itself there. But we were able to have those computers. The way we looked at it was, we didn't want it to be like the Chromebook to be used as a fancy word processor or typewriter. Okay,
Right.
for those who remember typewriters, but we really wanted it to be utilized for extending learning opportunities, for research. Okay, for the ability to manipulate data and how to run programs and those types of activities. I know that most of our secondary staff uses Google Classroom as the method for homework, not just assignments, a place that students
Right.
can easily find it, but complete it, load it. Teachers have easy access to it. Okay, that part is probably standard in a lot of places, I would think. But
Right.
from a curricular standpoint, we have a process that we follow, and it's per policy, but it's pretty straight. It's pretty simple actually. Where if we're looking at a particular area, we want staff involved, so we provide time. Sometimes it's release time during the day. Sometimes it's a couple hours. Maybe it's an after school thing or a
Right.
before school thing. But it's bringing staff together to review, and it's not all staff. There's a team of people that have interest in that want to make a difference. Sometimes they're elected by their peers or whatever it may be. But the point
Right.
is, they review all the curricular materials, and then administratively, like, there's people there present from the administration to talk about like the good, about a particular product, what that particular product may lack, if anything, and what are the consumables, what do they look like, and how does it integrate and interface with the state standards, and what does it mean for like supplemental materials. So
Right.
it's really comes down to those supplemental materials that you have to look at, because there's a tremendous cost to curriculum. But the ultimate point I'm driving at here is that it ultimately becomes an online curriculum, like it's an online textbook.
Right.
So we're not spending as much money on textbooks the way we did years past. We
Right.
still have them, don't get me wrong,
Right.
and we still buy them, but we're not buying near as many because everybody has their Chromebook and they have access to it on that. So from a
Okay.
curricular lens, it's having the ability to then take your computer, and then you're doing a lot of reading on the computer,
Hmm.
right? And for some people, like for students, they find no problem with that.
Right.
Okay. As an old man, I find problems with that
Don't love reading
because
on a computer, but yeah.
I'm still one of those print guys,
Right.
I like to print it out and read it and highlight it and mark it up. And albeit they can interact with the text on their book, on their Chromebook and things, like there is that ability, and you're not destroying a textbook per se by writing in it, but it's the way we've operated now for years. It's served us well, and we trust that. I don't see us changing that pathway and moving forward as related to the curriculum. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And in fact, I think we're to the point where we could talk about this for a long time on where we're going. But I'm gonna give us a way to wrap up here with a final question, and I want you, Dr. Curry, to pull out your crystal ball and give us a sense of the things that you're seeing trend-wise right now that you want to keep seeing, that you predict, that you hope will still be here in 5 to 10 years, and maybe something that you hope we'll see a little less of in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question. Wow. All right. Let's see. I want to keep doing everything I described today. Like, it is so encouraging and positive, and it's hard work. But I think what we're seeing is you have staff who've done this now for some time. It just becomes automatic. And the automaticity that you would want in a student learning about the science of reading is the same thing we want to see in our staff, that we want of ourselves.
Right.
That you just know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, and just get it done. Just make it happen. And then kids learn, and that's what we're here for. And there's a tremendous, I don't know, just glorious feeling, joyful feeling that comes with that experience, knowing kids are learning. And when you look at data and you see that success, it just means so much. So I think it's the crystal ball, 5 to 10 years out. I would hope and trust that the direction of the district is still on that aircraft carrier moving forward, and following the universal screener, having support through, and again, whether it's flight, Acadians, sometimes products change. I get that.
Sure.
But the key with step by step is not something you buy. It's something you learn and do through a process. And it's the process that has to stay in place for students to be good readers and reading at or beyond grade level by 3rd grade, and certainly by the time they graduate. What would I like to see change? I'd like to see there be more emphasis on the like this data that we're using, the early literacy data here, utilizing end of year, middle of year, end of year assessments that we give in the classroom based on this flight, and the progress monitoring, if you want to call it that takes place for all students based on how we track their performance.
Right. Okay.
I'd rather see more of that and less state testing. I just feel like it's not even the expense of state testing. It is what it is. Like, taxpayers have been paying for it for years. That's going to continue. I just think there's still students that struggle with, all right, being on or off today. I told you I had COVID. Like, I don't feel I'm overly on today, but we're doing all right, I think. And but I feel that I feel like with students, if they're off, you don't get a second chance with that. And I think that as we trudge through or continue, to lapse time, and that calendar continues to roll, 10 years out, I would hope that there's just more of the ability to listen to the people in the field, the teachers, the administration, and families, board members, as related to what really should happen, as related to state academic standards, and when things should be taught and how they should be assessed, and bring that, that level of like, you want it to be fun. You want school to be fun for children. You want it to be a place that, communities gather. That's who we are, what we are. But you want it to be a great experience, not this unpleasant, I can't do this. And I just hope that in time, it's more direct instruction and things that are happening in the schools. I'm getting a little off topic there. We talked about the NAEP scores earlier, And I just think that when we look at international benchmarks and you look at where the United States stands in comparison to some other countries, I feel like there's less governmental interference, in some of the highest performing nations, and they have a Department of Education that exists in some way, shape, or form. They're funded, but they leave the decisions of standards, testing, etc., up to the experts, and it works for them because their data shows it.
Right.
And I think there's so many changes that sometimes occur with us with things in education. I mentioned earlier about the steel standards with the science.
Right.
Okay, it's something new, so we have to adapt to it. It takes time, all right, and it takes resources, and it takes, it just doesn't happen overnight. Again, that aircraft carrier doesn't turn on a dime.
Right.
So if there's some way 10 years out that we can see us more aligned to not necessarily what other nations do instructionally, because they all come here to learn to the United States, all right? But it's the way we're governed, I guess, is really what it comes down to. So
yeah, that makes sense.
That's if I got long-winded in there, I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. I love it, and I think that more of what's working. Let's do more of that. You see that continuing, and maybe a little less of potentially legislative interference that might be legislating on high, and instead of let's do more of expert decision making at the ground floor. I love it. I think that's an excellent vision for the future. I'm optimistic. I'm there with you on that front. I've really appreciated our time today. Thank you so much for the conversation, and I hope we get a chance to do it again soon.
Absolutely. I'm honored that you would ask to be on your show, and I just praise all educators for their work because it's not an easy task. And just stay strong and stay the course. Great things are happening in public schools.
Agreed.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe to Literacy Mindset. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates, resources, and to join the conversation. Have a topic you'd like us to explore? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.